Hello everybody, hope you're doing okay. Welcome to my front room again. You might be wondering what's happened to the cabin. Well, we've got a bit of building work that's going on at the moment. It's a bit difficult to get down there, so I have to retire to the front room. Sue will soon kick me out, so no worries, I'll be back there soon. Anyways, thanks so much for everyone who watched my first edition of the Running YouTuber News last week. I got enough positive feedback to worthwhile doing a second edition. And this week was dominated by more marathons and also, unfortunately, Storm Ashley. And we also had the next instalment of the YouTuber Influencer World Tour. So let's get stuck into it. So first up, we've got Andy Raynor at the Abingdon Marathon. Now, if you saw my training analysis video at the weekend, you know that he was definitely on for a PB and he was actually then going for a 2:38. I think the only thing that might have stopped him was Storm Ashley, and unfortunately that was sadly to be the case. Now, Andy did a very valiant effort. He's finished up with a 2:44.02 on chip time for 27th place. That was his second fastest ever marathon. And he certainly gave it every chance to do as best as he can. I think the opening few miles was basically straight into the headwind. So they had a lot casual start, but a bit slower than target pace. But he soon got into a good rhythm. And halfway he was at 1:21. So not too far off where he was hoping to be. And as often the case, sometimes you can really find something, as with Ben in Chicago, and Andy tried to push on and see if he could do a negative split. And I think he did actually pick up the pace for a while. I got it down to sort of 6-minute mile pace here. You can see that the miles are sort of ticking off early on. But unfortunately, it just ran out of steam. I think the combination of the wet weather and the strong headwinds just really got to him. And the last few miles, he just sort of just couldn't keep it going, but finished up with a very valiant 2:44.02, as I said. So yeah, really a strong effort. I always like to see runners trying their very best despite the conditions. I think it's very easy to probably not even bother turning up. I looked out the window on Sunday morning and thought, oh, thank goodness I don't have to run at the moment. When I did get out in the afternoon, it was still rather windy. Fortunately, it had stopped raining by then. But yeah, sometimes you just got to get out and do what you can do. And yeah, hats off to Andy, great running, and look forward to seeing what he does next. I think he might be now looking to do some shorter races, but hopefully has a bit of a rest, because I think sometimes people trying to cram in too many long races back to back, and those second ones really go well if you've given the first one a good go. So yeah, rest up well, Andy, and look forward to hearing your next goals. Now, rather surprisingly, Dawn Broom, the other half of the two running Brooms, popped up at the Yorkshire Marathon. And she's looking basically for redemption from her rather disappointing Chester Marathon when she had to sadly pull out through sciatica at just over halfway. So I think she discussed her situation with John, and I suppose having not run too far in the Chester Marathon, not really tiring her out, although she apparently did get COVID in the interim between the two, they decided to give this a go. And remarkably, Dawn managed to finish in 3:37 to come third in her age group and qualify for yet another England Masters vest. I think she's now made the team in every event from 5K up to marathon, which also includes the 10K and the half marathon. So yeah, I think if I ever get one of them, I'd be absolutely delighted, but she's absolutely prolific. And I think she was just looking to get that Chester Marathon out of her head. I think, use a golfing analogy, if I ever have a bad round, obviously the best thing to do is go straight out again. Normally in a marathon you can't really do that, but I suppose having only got to halfway at Chester means you wasn't completely fatigued from that. But as I said, having got COVID, then blimey, it's just really remarkable that she was even able to get to the line this time. And I suppose you have to be a bit careful, but I think she did that. Say 1:48 halfway split, so I think she basically ran the same time again for the second half. Not particularly great conditions here in Yorkshire either. This is actually, I think, actually in York or from York, so doesn't appear to be absolutely tipping it down, but you're seeing a lot of surface water and obviously not the best of conditions. I'm sure it's a bit windy. John Broom, who I also featured along with Andy, he ran in the 10-mile race and did 1:12, so a very good fine run from him. And I did ask him if he saw any of the YouTubers there, but he apparently said he went home around about the 4:20 mark, so I think he must have missed anybody. So yeah, no one else to report, unfortunately. Now, there was one other YouTuber, Kelly Ruck, who's the partner of Matt Reese, the Welsh runner, who's also my coach. Now, I didn't know she was running, but I noticed that she did a remarkable 3:56 PB at Abingdon, and it was only really meant to be a training run for her. She's preparation for the Valencia Marathon, which I think a lot of YouTubers and runners will obviously be looking for. So great to see that she finally nailed a marathon that is really, really good to run. She has a lot of problems with diabetes, so great to see someone with those conditions can overcome it and do some really fine running. And yeah, if it's just a tune-up for Valencia, we'll see what she can do there. But Matt did say that it rather takes the pressure off now, and what will be will be. So yeah, well, very well done to Kelly, and look forward to seeing your next one, and I hope you can do a video to tell us all about it. Now with YouTube, sometimes you do get some inspirational videos. I'm not normally a person that gets sort of motivated by these sort of videos, but this one really did struck me as being really worthwhile having a look at. This is Rick from the running channel. As you may remember, he had sort of reconstructive knee surgery, and here's the worst of it, and he basically wasn't sure that he'd ever be able to run again. So it was very great to see that he did the Oxford Half Marathon, and I think it was his first half marathon for a couple of years, and you could see how much that meant to him. And yeah, this video is definitely worth a watch. If you're looking for inspiration in running, I think this is a good place to start. And it just goes to show sometimes that isn't necessarily all about PBs and times, it's just about getting out there. And I know I do make a lot of talk about that sort of stuff. I've sort of increasing the realization, especially having had a few niggles recently and getting on a bit, that just being able to run is the most important thing. And if you can run and you want to race, then the times come. And this is a very good example of that. So yeah, well done, Rick. So the other big news this week is that the Great South Run was cancelled, and here is Donato, who was hoping to run in it, going for a run somewhere nearby and pointing out that it's not actually raining. But I think, to be fair, he wasn't actually at the coast where it was obviously going to be difficult. And it's obviously not just the conditions at the exact time of the race. They've got to put out all the stuff the night before, and people have got to stand around for hours and hours and hours where all the runners do it. And if you're literally right by the coast, as the Great South Run is, then it's the windy on the best of days, not alone the days where it's got 40-mile-an-hour forecast and driving rain. So I think definitely the right call. And at least Donato here got himself an opportunity to have an extra week's rest after Berlin, as he was telling me. He gave me a shout out in this video. He also berated me last week for not saying I'm one of his best friends on YouTube. So I thought I'd get this video in to show him that I'm one of his best friends on YouTube. And it's also excellent to see Donato. He's a M60, so he's about 6 years older than me, so an age group up ahead. So he's probably running faster than I am now, 6 years on. And yeah, it just goes to show that if you keep at it, then you can do very well. Very similar age and category to Dawn Broom. So both of those two very inspirational. Now, another M60 runner come duathlete is Mark Saggers here. Now, unfortunately, he's injured. Although I did have to chuckle at this little shorts here, because if it sort of pans back, you can see him in his running kit heading out with his laptop. Here he is. I think this could be me. Headphones on, laptop on, rucksack on, running kit on, to go for a cycle in his shed. And what is this udder cream? Maybe Mark will tell us what is the purpose of udder cream. Is that for your shorts, or is that to drink halfway, or what? Is that for an injured runner? I think he's got a bad back, but yeah, so I hope he's back on the running soon. This is sort of like quite a humorous take on being injured. I think sometimes when you're injured, you need to sort of laugh at yourself. Well, I think sometimes you need to laugh at yourself generally. Sometimes people take themselves a bit too seriously, don't they, on YouTube? And this is a good example of, even though things aren't going so well, you need to be able to have a bit of a chuckle about it. And Mark is actually one of the best duathletes in the country, as well as a sub-18 5K runner at 60 plus. So yeah, something I need to basically aspire to keep up with him. Well, maybe at the moment he's not running, but yeah, let's hope he's back running soon. And continuing the theme of featuring my best friends on YouTube, here's Ben Notley, who lives quite near me. Occasionally I bump into him on a run when he's heading out on the trails, and I'm pretending that I'm not running on the trails, I'm just heading somewhere near them, maybe doing a few streets. Now, bizarrely, maybe rather idiotically in my view, but anyway, he's doing the Greensand Way 100, not as a race, he's just doing this as a fundraiser on his own. And here he's showing his shoes, some Hoka number. They look remarkably clean, don't they? I think he must have cleaned them up for YouTube. And they've got like a massive gaiter there. And he's showing, oh, don't know what he's showing there. Not too much mud on hills or water, but he seems to have cut up his leg. So yeah, trail running is obviously a dangerous occupation. I think he's running from sort of like east to west, finish off in Hazelmere, which is an area I know well. And I usually try and stick to the roads there, but it's pretty much horizontal on the road. So yeah, you've got the Devil's Punch Bowl and the old A3, which you can now sort of run up sort of thing. And yeah, I think this goes somewhere near there. And he's showing this video of all his kit, which seems to go on forever. It's remarkable how much kit you need for a 100-mile run. Makes me tired looking for all his bag. I think he might have got some socks there. Did he get sent those socks? He occasionally gets a bit of freebies, so he's a bit of a budding influencer, is old Ben. You know, he tries his best. I think sometimes he reviews a backpack or something like that, and yeah. So yeah, just need to make do with what you can get. But by and large, I think he buys all his own stuff. and maybe even his own gels. I think he picks his own gels. I think sometimes YouTubers pick the gels that they get sent for free. Oh, here we go. He's trying to some Hoka number. Maybe like a Ben Parks thing with the short shorts, but I think he's got a variety of shorts. He's hoping he's not going to wear them all at once and see which one's best. Presumably he's got one like skin tight ones. These look a bit flappy to me. Might be a bit cold under there. Anyway, joking aside, I think there's actually some live tracking for Ben as well for this weekend. And he's still got his shorts. He's ripped those apart, so I hope he gets sent another pair. That won't do at all, will it? Yeah, as I said, I think there's some live tracking for Ben, so go and send him some love. And he's raising money for the Cancer Research UK. And what watch has he got there? Did he get sent that watch? I'm not sure. Everyone seems to have a Chorus watch, don't they, if they're a YouTuber? I still like my Garmin's, I have to say. All my Garmin Forerunners. But yeah, I've got two on at the moment. You always have two, because like Joanna in the Chicago Marathon, if one goes wrong, you always like got a backup. I mean, you'd hate to run a marathon and find you haven't got Strava of it. How would you get any comments? Best of luck then, Ben. There's his T-shirt. Okay, so continuing the theme of featuring all my friends in the hope that they sort of like give me a shout out at some point. Here's Stephen Cousins' Film My Run. He's now very pleased to get to 250 park runs. Now, I actually met him on Zwift, on the treadmill, when we were one of the original sort of Zwift runners. Stephen is still very much involved with that, and occasionally he does get out and does a park run, but he's more renowned as a ultra trail marathon runner, a bit like Ben Notley. And he gives a nice little video here of his running history and park runs. As you can see there, he's a bit younger and maybe just a bit broad around the extremities there. But yeah, he's looking a bit lighter these days, isn't it? But maybe just a few more grey hairs. So which one would you rather prefer? Anyway, so very good to see that he's got 250 park runs. Now, we've actually won all at Worthing Park Run. I need to get down there for the rematch. And I think I might need to wait a bit until he gets after an ultra trail race, because he's currently in sub-20 form, and I don't think I am. I don't think I would even beat John Broom either at the moment. So yeah, I don't want to get beaten by both those two in the same race. So or park run. That is his original picture of his park run debut. Did he not actually film it? Unbelievable. I don't think he's actually done a race where he's not filmed it. Occasionally I do that. I think I've done the odd park run. And sometimes I think, is it really worth filming a park run? Because you just go there, run round, and it's not exactly like my major achievement to get around a park runs it. But I suppose if you've done 250, it's worth talking about it, and also you can then talk about all your other runs and show pictures of you when you were looking somewhat younger. And here's another one. Well done, Stephen. See you soon. Now, on to some shoe news. Now, this is a bit ironic. This is like Chinese dolls. I'm reviewing a video which is also a news item here. So we've got the Pegasus Premium, which EddBud is talking about, because he was spotted on the new CEO of Nike, Elliot Giles, his name here. So will these shoes be basically a lifestyle shoe, or are they going to be a proper running shoe? You do think with all this tech in there, I think they've got a full-length airbag, you've got some Zoom X in there, and you've got this, that, and the other. They look like some sort of thing that you might maybe see in Back to the Future or something, as a shoe, like a vision of how a shoe perhaps looked in 10 years to come, filmed 20 years ago. So yeah, as a Nike person and a Pegasus fan, well, in the main, I think this is probably one I'll be looking to pick up, but it doesn't really look to be like setting the world on fire, to be like the answer to the Endorphin Speed or something, does it? And you've got a 15 PSI airbag there in the middle, as Ed was saying. So yeah, remains to be seen if that one's any good. I think that's not out until next year. Now, I did also notice that the Zoom Fly 6 is now launched in the UK, just as this one colourway on the Nike UK site, and EddBud has picked up a pair, so I'd be keen to see his thoughts. I thought the version 3 and the version 5 were two of the worst bricks that I bought since Super Shoes came in, so I haven't yet picked this one up. I'd be keen to hear what Ed says. I get the feeling it's going to be about 100 grams heavier than a Vaporfly, so around about the 350 mark for me, so maybe a bit lighter than the 5, but I do kind of thinking, what actually is the point of the shoe? Is that just spending £150 or whatever it is just to do a shoe review and then to wear it about 20 miles? I think, why did I bother with this? So yeah, I think I've held back on this one for a while, because I think, well, if it's got Zoom X in it and a plate and it's 100 grams heavier, why can't I, as I did today, just wear my Vaporfly 3s, did some hill reps, and yeah, if you're going uphill, then do you really want to lug up 100 grams more of shoe? And I just took out a pair that I've now got to 200 miles with those Vaporfly 3s. I've only got the one pair of Vaporfly 3s. Maybe I'll look out for a cheaper pair and see if I can get another pair for my return to 5K racing. I've entered the British Masters in December, so I'm kind of hoping that I'll be in some sort of form by then, but I don't really like the idea of racing if it's going to be like embarrassment. I don't really like to sort of just turn up for a race and run round for the sake of it. So a completely seamless transition to the Amsterdam Marathon and Half Marathon weekend. Seems to be the next stop on the Influencer World Tour. This time it was Mizuno who were the brand who was kind of being featured. And it was a bit bizarre because they were sort of showcasing the Wave Rebellion Pro 3, I think. Another of these shoes with the zebra colorway with no heel. But we had Alex Folletti here. We also had Aubrey and Ben Felton. And none of them really seemed to sort of like try particularly hard. Everything seemed to be a bit tired. They didn't seem to be going absolutely out. But I think, as they were paying to say, they were there to have a good time. Didn't really learn anything at all about the shoe. And if it's the shoe that I'm meant to be buying because it's going to give me new PB, well, they didn't seem to pick the right people that actually freshen up for the race, which I think it's going to get me into trouble, but that's just the reality of how I saw it. So, but yeah, it seemed to me that in terms of like a weekend, this is the place to go. And actually, bizarrely, my boss at work ran and she did a 3:09, and she said she was only really running for fun. So it just goes to show that some people running for fun can do so a bit quicker than others. But as it was pains to point out, it wasn't all about times, despite the fact that some people get upset if you predict their times. But anyway, it is what it is, and we look forward to New York. Let me know if you hear of any YouTubers that are actually running this time. I'm not sure that anyone is actually going to come into that race fresh, and it's undoubtedly the hardest of the marathon majors to do a good time in. Now, moving on to a completely different type of athlete, here is Elliot Giles, one of Britain's best 800 and 1500 metre runners, and he did an interesting video here of his recap of his 2024 season. I think he's kind of in a sort of transitional phase. I think next year he's going to really target the 1500, whereas I think he was trying to do that this year, but unfortunately didn't make the Olympic team originally, although fortunately he got a last-minute call-up and the 800 and quitted himself well. He had a very sort of mixed season. He had some races where he did remarkably well, including the world record in the road mile, I think in the Streak Fly 2, which we haven't heard too much about yet, but I'm looking forward to them. I think they're meant to be rumoured to be a dragonfly for the road, which means they shouldn't be too high stack and the carbon plate, and should be a genuine 5k racing shoe as opposed to all these other ones which always promised to be a 5k racing shoe but never has really seemed to be any better than the marathon equivalents, at least not for me. So yeah, it's interesting to hear Elliot's talk here, and certainly his videos are worth watching. I see his subscribers are jumping up. He'll soon be past me. But it's interesting sometimes, I think, with some of these elite athletes, then some of them are really popular and some of them perhaps aren't. You can't sometimes work out why that is. Is it just because that elite athletics isn't really popular anymore? We had all these problems with the world record in the marathon, didn't we, where more people are sort of prepared to say that it was like a false run, it was a drugs, this, that, and the other, than it was actually a good run. And I think track is a area which is kind of my bread and butter that I've always most enjoyed, but I think it's good like this that somebody actually puts a bit of a face to it and just goes to show that these are real people training for it. And you know, if you do run a 4-minute mile, it is somewhat better than running a 4-hour marathon, despite what anyone might think. Yeah, it doesn't take as long, but the ability levels are radically different. But yeah, is anyone who's interested in running a fast mile also interested in just getting around a marathon? I think there's quite a different audience. Well, there's John Bigg, Sully Gunnell's husband, who's the coach. So yeah, definitely worth a watch if you're interested in elite athletics and issues that they go through. There's a lot of travelling, a lot of spending nights in hotels, so maybe not the glamorous life that you make out, but yeah, it's one way to eke out a living. And here's a guy with 2 young kids and a family trying to make it away in his life before he gets, well, past it, I suppose. I mean, it's a very short-lived career as elite track runner. Despite what they say, you get to early 30s and you're really starting to look about when it's time to stop, really. Anyway, best of luck to Elliot next season, and I hope he really does well. He just missed out on lottery funding, actually, which is another interesting point, that Alicia McColgan and Elliot Giles, I thought the 2 runners who were the biggest sort of like losers in terms of that respect. I'm not quite sure whether they just decided to opt out of the lottery funding. I mean, Elish is probably of standing now that she probably can be sort of self-funded. Not so sure about Elliot. I mean, he often wears Nike kit. I'm not totally sure whether he has a sort of full deal with them, but hope he's got something coming in and it can eke out some money for this season. I suppose with YouTube, as Philly Bowden has shown, that you need to have a few other things up your sleeve, as it were. And interestingly, her YouTube career is going just as well as her running is. So just goes to show sometimes if you put your mind to one thing, you can excel in the other, and you can actually move forward on both counts and be a lot better a person all around. Just need to really put the work in. I think it's the case with YouTube as well. I mean, I think, I do lots of videos, and it's always nice if people watch it, but I know I'm never going to be like a big YouTuber. It seems to appeal to too many people. Maybe I upset too many people. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this sort of little take. Some of this is sort of tongue-in-cheek, of course. I hope you can see through that bit of British sarcasm. We don't always make it too obvious, but yeah, some of the people featured who are my friends, hope they see it in the same light. Now, one more shoe one here. This is Believe in the Run, reviewing the Adidas Adizero Evo SL. Now, it's a bit of an odd video, this one. He seems to spend half the video telling us that they should click away if you don't believe this is a fair review. I did actually manage to watch the whole review, picked up it was good for shakeout runs and or casual. So in that sense, it could be good. Now, bizarrely, it's only going to be retailing for £130 in the UK, but Adidas have put out a draw to win the chance to buy it. So, and also very oddly, they seem to have got every size going up to UK 15, which is 1.5 sizes bigger than I actually take. So maybe for once I get the option of half sizes, but I don't honestly think they've really made all those ones. But maybe they have. But anyway, if it's a casual shoe, I suppose, maybe they're thinking that they're going to sell a lot of these. And in this limited release, are they going to be then finding a lot of these on eBay and StockX for double the price, only to find in a few months' time that there'll be masses of colourways, they'll be reduced because they've made too many, as they often do with Adidas. But yeah, it's definitely a shoe that sort of looks interesting. It's quite light as well, but I didn't really pick up any vibes here how it compares to the SL2. So it's all a bit confusing when you've got these two SL shoes here. This one's got a lot lower drop and seems to have the foam that is in the Adios Pro 3. So although it's called Light Strike Pro, I think there's now a Light Strike Pro old version. There's a Light Strike Pro new version in the Pro 4 and the Pro Evo 1. So this is kind of like, maybe it's the equivalent of the ZoomX scraps. It's kind of all the stuff that they're trying to get rid of. So they put it in a shoe, give it the Evo name, and generate some hype around it, and hope we all go rushing to buy it. But yeah, so I'm going to be picking this one up. I'm sort of tempted to enter the draw, and it's only £130, isn't it? So, but yeah, I never really run too much in the SL2 so far. I've been enjoying my Pegasus too much, unfortunately. Maybe I'm just a sucker for punishment. And speaking of the BS videos, I thought I had to laugh at this title, How to Run Longer Without Getting Tired. This is Patrick Martin again. And basically his answer to how to run longer without getting tired is basically to go and run a lot and get yourself really fit, and then maybe you can run as well as he could. I think there's an element here that he's actually very talented. He makes out in this video that he's only just started running, and his first marathon was a 2:28, and his first half marathon was a 69-minute one. I don't think too many of us will ever manage those sort of like debuts, but it just goes to show, I think, if you are a good runner, you get there basically by doing hard work, and there are no shortcuts. And he's a runner that's putting in massive amount of miles. I think, unfortunately, he perhaps overdoes it a bit and does get injured a bit, but in that sense, you're kind of thinking, well, let's hope he actually gets out to a race. I mean, very interested to see how he does. And he runs around Cranley, which I've also run around. It's pretty hilly around there, so if you're doing that, you're certainly building up some stamina for sure. Now, I thought James Dunne did an interesting video here, not really reviewing a shoe, but talking about shoes and making the point that these ultra soft high stack shoes, here as modelled by the running shoes guru guy in the Invincible 3, aren't necessarily what you need, and maybe they give you a false sense of security. And was pointing out that in his experience, quite a lot of runners he sees as a physio come into him with knee pain because they've been wearing these high stack soft shoes. And interestingly, it struck a chord because I did actually remember going for a run the Invincible one time and did get some knee pain, and I swapped it out for a slightly firmer shoe like the Endorphin Speed the next day. That pain went straight away. So yeah, I've been a bit cautious of using the Invincibles ever since. I wasn't quite sure he gave any real scientific evidence for this, but it did make a lot of sense from that sort of example, and I think just a good talking point video. So I always find his videos quite good value, and he's got an awful lot of subscribers, 291k. So yeah, certainly some good stuff in there. Okay, I think that's it for this week. Just like to say that if anyone wants to be featured, then drop a comment down below or make some suggestions. Conversely, if there's any people out there who don't want to be included in my videos, I've already had one, then drop me a message and I'll be sure not to mention you again. Although I might sort of make veiled references to the people that I can no longer talk about. It's just part of the course, isn't it, unfortunately? You can't really sort of like prevent people just sort of like expunging yourself completely from social media if that's what you want to be. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this running YouTuber news version 2, and hopefully you'll get some useful comments and look forward to replying to them, and we'll see if it's worth doing a version 3 or whether I've upset so many people there'll be no one left to feature. Anyway, hope you have a good running week and see you on the next one. Bye.